Today we're going to go over some more monthly development from January in Star Citizen, where they were working on ships and features and reforming some teams and doing all kinds of little updates here and there that are going to lead into 323, but also there's some stuff here that's coming later down the line. That should be pretty interesting. So, if you haven't been here for one of these before, we try to go over the monthly reports in a whole bunch of depth. For a lot of people, it's annoying depth. For a lot of people, though, it's also it's nice. It's that good shit. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Good shit. There we go. I hit the mute button. And we're going to be doing that today in high detail. I'll be pulling up some videos. We'll look at some old information to add some context and probably complaining a little bit about stuff that didn't show up. If you like Star Citizen, consider subscribing or come join these live. All right, we're starting out with AI, as always. You know how it is. AI's always got something for us. AI features in January. Again, this is January. Comes out in February, but it's talking about January. AI features began the year working on a key AI-driven initiative for Alpha 323. This involved a variety of improvements and new behaviors that required frequent discussions between various disciplines. This seems like this might be one of those surprises that they're not looking to talk about, because I feel like they would say what this is. They're just like, AI features are working on AI. And it involves a lot of things that AI require. I guess we'll wait to see if they talk more about that next month. AI on the tech side, though, they've got a little more to say. AI tech started 2024 picking up where they left off last year. For example, they added the ability for multiple NPCs to use a ladder simultaneously when moving in the same direction, which completes the feature perfect for the crop dusting. The transit system received upgrades to make the use transit logic smoother and more robust when handling fails, retries, and fallbacks. For NPCs using elevators, the flow was improved to create a more efficient sequence. For example, characters won't be seen going back and forward anymore, and will instead board the elevator directly, eliminating unnecessary waiting or interim positions. Back and forward? What were they were going, what does that mean, back and forward? The development of generating navigation mesh on planets continued, particularly close to poles, to support outpost locations with NPCs. Okay, that's good. See, we got NPC navigation on planets years ago, but there's not enough locations that actually have them outside to really show it. We need more NPCs just like walking around areas that are outside, not necessarily directly outside of a building, you know? Somewhere in the I want to meet an NPC out there somewhere. I guess they're always around derelict ships and stuff, though. Like, when would you run into a person randomly in the forest that's not within proximity of some kind of civilization? I don't care. Don't talk to me about logic. That's just what I want to see, okay? AI tech also continued... Did I finish that? Sorry, I didn't finish that. To achieve this, the navigation meshes, a new tile name system for planets was implemented, which translates position locations into terrain patch IDs for more accurate navigation around poles. I think they generate these navigation meshes on the fly, but when they first design them to like make sure they're good and they can actually be loaded in when they need to be, I think they initially do that with the planet tech stuff. Let me see if I can find... There's like a really good video of the planet tech tiles. Shows how these planets were created, which I believe was similar way that Starfield made their planets. Here we go. So you can see this might have changed from now. This is 2021, I think. This was their previous version of Planet Tech, what they want to upgrade this year. And you can see that they have like all these different types of tile sets with different sorts of height maps and stuff, and they can create these on the fly if they want and customize and save them. But they can make them and throw a whole list together. And then you can see here that they'll then procedurally lay them out across a planet to mesh together and create an overall biome. So when they do this, I believe that's kind of when the navigation mesh kind of stuff is happening. And the navigation mesh... Nav mesh? Nav mesh. The nav mesh looks something like this when it's being generated. Not pretty. But this is just the debug look, and this is, you can see how it's kind of saying, hey, NPCs obviously can't walk on the side of a rock, can't walk on the side of a building. So these will be generated for every location so that NPCs can move around. All right. AI tech also continued to support the designers with additional functionalities and quality of life fixes for Apollo. This included the ability to delete functions directly from the multigraph view, enhanced clicking behavior when zoomed out far enough, improved menu options, and functionality to define shops and platforms. Apollo is their subsumption editor, so this is really they're doing work to support the people who are building the game. This is like building the scaffolding to build the game, or to build the building. Whatever they use this for will be what drives AI and missions forward later. For spaceship behaviors, the latest fixes and changes to the new pilot combat behavior were included in the new Arena Commander mode added in 3.22. Ought to check that out. Super Mac Bro also mentioned that we might actually be seeing the new HUD in one of the master modes in Arena Commander, so that could be worth checking out too. The team are currently developing a new data loading procedure for subsumption data. This will allow stricter requirements on the data so they can immediately identify issues. This functionality will be enabled as an additional step when submitting for validation. Solid. AI tech is not going to be the most exciting stuff. This is the stuff that lets AI features do stuff that lets AI content eventually make content. So these things are very engine-focused additions. The team are currently developing, I already said that. Alongside these updates, AI tech continued to support release builds and addressed numerous smaller improvements and bug fixes. Love bugs. Validation, good. We love validation. Art on the character side. Always a short section. In January, the character art team completed the racing flight suit and its helmet and continued working on headhunter outfits. I'm so glad that we've finally seen the headhunters. No, I think it was the dusters. I think it was both. We just didn't see any headhunters or duster stuff, but we heard about it every monthly report of last year. I'll give you a quick look-see. Here we go. All right, so here are these are R&R actually. These are the dusters. Here we go. So here are the headhunters. This is the character art they're currently working on. To me, I feel like they've got a pretty standard space pirate kind of feel to them. But everything needs their generic faction, right? Not to call you guys generic headhunters. I know you're special. I know you get your stuff, do your things. You probably drink from the ashes of, I don't know, your enemies, whatever. But they still kind of have more of a general look than, say, something like the Dusters, who...
Fine.
The Dusters also have they have a very sci-fi space pirate look, but it feels a little more exciting. Headhunters seem like a solid faction, but not the one I'm most excited about. So it is still good to hear they're doing work on it. The character concept art team also began exploring legendary armors, and worked on handoff sheets. Legendary. All right, art on the ship's side. Last month, the RSI Zeus continued to progress through the gray box stage. So, at this time last year, the Spirit passed its gray box review, with the F1 moving into gray box. So, the Zeus is a little bit ahead of it, but that doesn't mean much because we don't know how they're going to work on this throughout the year. They might put this down for a couple months at some point. The team are currently focusing on finishing various areas, including the entrance ladder and engineering, while polishing previous areas to make them match the contemporary RSI style. I'd be wary of thinking that it's going to get here faster just because that progress is looking good. I've fallen for that one. If you are wondering what the Zeus looks like, if for whatever reason you haven't seen the latest obsession, ship obsession of the mid-flight runners, here is the Zeus. It is a new 2 to 3 person mid-size, small to mid-size multi-purpose line of variant ships. The ES, which is essentially just your exploration, get around kind of variant. You've got your MR, which is your bounty hunting variant. It's got itself a little, I think, an EMP and quantum snaring device on the back there. And you got your CL, which is a ridiculous. This thing fits so much cargo inside of it for its size, and really excels at, you know, small scale cargo hauling. So 3 interesting variants doing wildly different things in the gray box. A previously announced vehicle completed its LOD 0 phase, with the team also working on paints through January. LOD 0 would be... Man, they didn't say anything about ships in the last monthly report, so I don't think I could tell you what this might even be. LOD 0 is basically the highest level of detail that something can reach before it starts to receive things like lighting, damage passes, and other very crucial last stretch things, audio effects and things like that. So this ship actually might be one that we see at 323. Maybe. This also could definitely be a Invictus Week ship. Hitting LOD 0 right now, I wouldn't be surprised if this is something we see for Invictus Week, which means it could be a combat ship. That narrows it down a little. So last month they talked about the Polaris. They talked about the Saber Raven going gold standard, and 3 new variants were worked on, another continued through gray box, and the last progressed into LOD 0. I don't think that's what they were talking about. I wonder if this is the G12. Work wrapped up on the Gatek Sulen. Aegis Redeemer. Yeah, they haven't given us very much information on what ships are being worked on right now. I would say, though, a previously announced ship that could be vehicle. They say that could be so many things. We won't try to guess it right now. They said some areas have already made it through final content, and we hope to be completely hands-off in a couple of weeks before moving on to additional promised content work. Okay, so this is a ship that might be bringing in a new gameplay. This is a ship that hasn't finished its gameplay, but the art team is getting good on. It's the Ranger. Y'all want to hear a hot take on this? This is going to be the hottest of takes I'll probably have all year. That's a lie. This is a big year. We're going to be saying some really dumb stuff this year. What if this was the Expanse? They shut the fuck up about refining last year, and it was weird. I think they started talking about it in March, maybe, and they only mentioned it, I think, one time. Refined sheet. Ship refinery work began, right? March of last year. The design intentions were brought up to speed to allow the engineers to start work in the next sprint. So they did that, and then they stopped talking about refining completely. But if we go to the progress tracker, which, you know, hasn't been updated in quite some time, refinery ships, at least the scheduled work on them, was completed late last year. Now, I bet you anything that's not where it stopped. It kept going. But, like, what if there... maybe. I wouldn't put too much on that, but I think that'd be really cool. It would also fall in line with them working on the Arastra a little bit earlier than we expected, but who knows. It's the Raylan. They haven't even mentioned the Raylan. You think the Raylan is reaching LOD 0 already? Without too many talks about, like, I guess it doesn't have its own gameplay, really. It just sounds like it is gameplay limited, since the team is going to completely finish their work in the coming weeks, but then hold off until content work. And that could be also the fancy Xi'an hover tech. The RSI Polaris is currently in gray box, with modular pieces done for the lifts, habs, corridors, and hangars. Key here is the modular pieces. This is not the traditional modularity we think of with ships. This is their attempt to build capital ships as, like you said earlier, Legos, so they can just rip these lifts, habs, corridors, and hangars out and put them in the other large RSI ships, hopefully making capital ships come a little bit faster. All right, an unannounced ship progressed well, receiving an updated lighting pass, including palms, little pom-poms, yay! To meet the current visual standard. 3 different lighting states, standardized headlights, geo updates. And glows in the thrusters. Glows. It also received a material refactor and other updates. That's an unannounced ship. That's cool. That should be fun. Received an updated lighting pass. Oh, so this thing is ahead of whatever this is. So I bet you this is going to be an Invictus Week ship, and this is going to be a 323 release. Who knows, though. 2 variants continue development. One moving through Greybox and began the LOD phase, while the other completed the LOD phase and is waiting its gate review. Those are probably those same... What were the variants here? We had 3 variants, right? 3 variants. One entered production, another continued through Greybox, the last progressed into Lot 0. So I'm guessing what they're talking about here are, I guess, continued through Greybox, just stayed in Greybox. And this one, you know, 1 month later, began Lot 0. Okay, cool. Yeah. So this one that was in Greybox in January, or in November, December, entered Lot 0. And then this one that was in Lot 0 back then, looks like it completed its Lot 0. So whatever the other variant was, they didn't even work on it last month. I wonder, I bet this is the G12. Wait, hold on. They didn't put the G12 in that video. In our next 12 months of vehicles video? All right. So we got this, right? This is a hover or ground vehicle. I really hope it's a hover vehicle from Tumbrel. I think that'd be cool. We've got X1s we've already gotten. Ursa, I guess this is what that Ursa variant. Could this possibly be a variant they're talking about? Doesn't look like it. They're talking about a single variant here. Lot 0 is just the highest level of detail before they get into stuff like this. Lighting states, headlights, thruster stuff, damage states, all that jazz. So Lot 0 is pretty far along, past Greybox, or the end of Greybox, kind of. Yeah, 2 variants. No, this would be getting a gold standard. We don't know what this is. Could this be an unannounced ship? The base building Atlas platform? Maybe this is our unannounced here. Unannounced ship progressed well. That'd be pretty crazy to get a ship this size into the game in a patch this well along that we haven't seen leaked. Could also be this. Could be our Mirai, whatever large Mirai ship it is. This is freaking huge. Okay, this is a previously announced ship, which I did not think of. It'd be strange if this was in Lot 0, but they have been talking a little bit about hacking in leaks. Maybe... I don't know, there's so many options for what these ships could be. That is the, that's the Zeus. Retaliator, we know, and then the Polaris. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what these ships are. We'll keep an eye on them, though. Legionnaire would be an interesting addition. I don't know what they're going to do to try and make it make sense. Docking needs to be a lot better before the Legionnaire really makes a lot of sense. You can only dock with like 2 ships, I think. Okay, so the last thing we got here is the ship art, which is gold standard work for the Aegis Retaliator. We saw that. They're not saying it, but this might include modularity. No, they're not saying it, but this will almost absolutely include modularity. Check this out.
Pods.
Yeah, still planned. They are, those ones are actually technically blocked, but that's the same tech blocker as we have with the Retaliator modules. So when we have that, Retaliator modules will probably be the first thing that come online using it.
Okay, he says probably, but that's pretty straightforward.
And then we can go back through the catalog of ships that have that same sort of modular room functionality and implement that.
So I don't know if you would want to do a gold pass on the Retaliator without updating it for modularity. Hopefully they don't have to do yet another update on it again for modularity. But we do know that the Retaliator not only has some nice updates coming to it on the interior, a nice fresh coat of paint, more space. This is actually the older one, I believe. And you can see that, right? This is the... Or is this the newer one? I thought they were getting rid of the airlocks on the top and bottom. I know this is at least related to what they want to do for the rework of the Retaliator, updating the materials, as you can see, getting the finishing touches in here, but also giving it some med beds for the specific medical module. And I think they redid the elevator too. So there are some good updates coming to the Retaliator as I think one of the lesser used ships. It's always so much surprisingly more big than I thought it was when I see it. Weapons on the art side. January saw the weapons art team redesigning and changing the dimensions of weapons optics. Improvements were also made to the FPS weapon wear map, while various animations were fixed for ship weapons. Weapon optics, I believe, are getting updated with our new patch coming in, so we'll get much better scopes. And weapon wear and tear, I guess, is going to be later in the year, because that wasn't included on 323, at least not yet. Community stuff, Luminalia happened, Daymar Rally happened. If you didn't catch that video, I just released a review of the Daymar Rally. It goes over what happened, the amazing performance put on by our own GII Racing, who are in chat here. I saw Vastin in here, and Signusian might be chilling somewhere and having some senbei, I hope. Arena Commander schedule came out. This is now a thing ever since they redid Arena Commander. They're trying to keep activity going in this game mode. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't play. I haven't actually gotten a chance to play as fully as I've wanted to, but they do these full-on schedules. So like if you have friends who like more quick FPS combat, want to just get into a game and run, and they are willing to put up with a little bit of jank, this is the way I think that you should introduce them to the game, through Arena Commander. Lots of different game modes, lots of different options, custom, you can even test experimental versions of the game. And they have a lot of like custom events and schedules like this, so you can go and earn yourself some achievements. Put a little badge on your shoulder in the future to tell people. Economy team. Love that we're getting updates on this now so regularly. Last month, the economy team completed a balance pass on the UEC prices of FPS weapons. They're currently looking into the impact of structural salvage on the in-game economy. This is key because we've never lived in a game environment in Star Citizen where the economy was a focus. We've always lived in an environment where testing the game features was a focus. Does something need to be tested? Make it pay out a shit ton of money. Is something new to the game? Give it some value. Do people need to fly ships? Make them a little cheaper. We've constantly been in this state of, hey, I want to play the game. What's the best way to make money? Well, first you have to figure out how much money you need to make per hour. Okay, well, if I can't figure that out if I don't know what I want to buy. So, for all this time, prices have been arbitrary. Ships have costed something we don't really care about. And earning money from missions hasn't made sense. You could fly 15 million kilometers and get paid like 2,000 UEs. So, them balancing stuff via UEC means that we'll be able to know for a new player, if you want to run enough missions to outfit your squad, you have to make this amount of money to get this many weapons. Couldn't say that before. You have to run these missions to get paid out to reach that amount of money. Couldn't say that before. All we could say was, I mean, combat missions pay great when you get higher in reputation, and salvage pays well because it's boosted. The economy getting worked on is such a big deal, and I think this is starting in 323. Well, continuing in 323, we'll see more pricing updates. Also, now we have a team that's dedicated to seeing how gameplay is affecting the economy, so we're starting to get away from the test everything kind of mindset, and more towards the play this game, this is turning into a game kind of mindset. New section of the month report, core gameplay. It looks like they are getting rid of the features teams and roping them all into core gameplay. We'll see how that goes down. It's a big section. To amplify efforts, they're explaining it here. The character, vehicle, gameplay, and arena commander sections are no longer separate, as the gameplay features team was reorganized toward the end of last year. This included the teams from Squadron 42, the PU, and arena commander. To operate as, they're now operating as one unified core gameplay pillar. As such, their progress will be reported under the core gameplay pillar moving forward. This feels, again, like what I was just saying. They're shifting more towards this, we're developing a game. Like the core gameplay team feels like, okay, it's core gameplay, obviously. Feels like everything they did for Squadron, including some of the Star Citizen stuff. Like this is the team that's actually building the game. The rest of these places are building the stuff that the game goes inside of. And I don't know, all of these kinds of restructurings they're doing, I know some companies do this to make it feel like they're doing stuff, your end of the year restructuring, but with CIG this feels like a very significant change they've been undergoing. So I'm happy for it. Last month, the core gameplay team continued porting some of the Squadron 42 features seen at CitizenCon to the PU, which included making many features multiplayer compatible. Again, this is why the 323 update, the stuff going on, the hype that's building, a lot of people are saying it's not the same as before. Yes, they've hyped stuff up before, but never has there been actual teams dedicated to the stuff they were hyping up that we could see putting the stuff into the game engine, like at CitizenCon. The porting efforts and remaining code work on recoil improvements and dynamic crosshair were completed and refined to give players the best experience possible. EVA was also ported over and now has more intuitive strafing behavior and multiplayer support. Recoil behaviors are good. I wasn't sure if that was going to come in with the crosshair or not. For player interaction improvements, the team fixed various bugs. They're currently making sure that the interaction prompt, default actions, and control hints all work together to make it clear that what will happen when players interact with something. This was such a problem for the new player experience. Not knowing what you could interact with it really holds you back at a game that tries to be so immersive. Master Mode's testing and refinement is ongoing too, with several successful playtests. And rounds of positive feedback. Apparently coming in 323, which surprises me. The resource network and life support features were further developed, the devs scoping out the remaining work needed for feature release and clearing important tech debt. They also continued to work on jump point gameplay, including the procedurally generated tunnels and flow of entering the jump points. These jump points actually, so traveling between star systems is going to happen. That's kind of where the biggest server changes are happening. And it's a loading section, but not a loading screen. So instead of just jumping from one system to another, you actually have to guide your way through the tunnel to that system. And your ship, from what they've said, your ship can fall out. It can fall out of that tunnel and be stranded, and God knows how we're supposed to get through there. God knows how you're supposed to get saved when that happens. But that is the idea behind these jump gates. So here is a quick rendition of what it's kind of supposed to look like. What is with that sound? Ooh, okay, sorry. I was still eating part of my breakfast there. Here's a less polished version, early version of what it'll look like with Chris telling you all about it.
Yeah.
Let's do it! That's actually a super cool view. See that one? How good that is. That looks awesome. Okay. So going through a wormhole is a little bit like riding the rapids. You don't really have much. You have lateral control,
but it's being on a current.
You're being pushed on a current,
yeah.
And you've got to keep inside the boundaries of the wormhole. And actually, if Sam gets a little close, you'll sort of see interference on his screens. And of course, Stanton's just going away in the background, and Hera's coming in here.
I mean, hypothetically, Chris, come on. So you have to remember from all these earlier talks is whenever he said something like that, it's hypothetical.
A current that we put in the wormholes, and you sort of see the particles that are giving you
the old space sphincter. So you get the idea. You're supposed to be guided through on a current. I don't know if they're going to stick with that. There are different places in the game where it feels like they're trying to possibly let things be a little bit more casual and not as unforgiving. Dropping people out of a wormhole halfway through between two star systems seems kind of extreme. So we'll see if they stick with it, but it's an interesting idea. Progress was also made on several tech initiatives in January. For example, support continued for server meshing, yay, and server crash recovery. Notably, they keep calling it server crash recovery instead of calling it the replication layer separation, except they do call it that in some places. I don't know if this is supposed to say that they weren't working on the replication layer and just server crash recovery or what. I know they're obviously very closely related. I just wonder if they're using that name interchangeably or something. Notably, there were improvements to the usable code for robustness and reliability. For Maelstrom, the current workload involves evaluating existing setups and generating workflows to fit the new pipeline. The team has already started retrofitting existing systems, including improvements to allow ship landing gear to detach with Maelstrom debris and Oh my gosh. How many times have you landed on ship landing gear that's not attached to your ship because it just exists, even if you got a wing blown off? This includes improvements to allow ship landing gear to do the things and simplifying the design markup for configuring item control within vehicles. These changes not only facilitate the new pipeline, but improve on the implementation based on feedback. I'm betting you, or I wouldn't be surprised, I'll say, if... So just to give you a look at Maelstrom and what it actually looks like. Here's a little... Maelstrom is their Battlefield Bad Company DICE crazy, the finals damage system that's supposed to affect buildings, guns, ships, possibly people. Just chip away at a person. I don't know. But here's a look at it. So yeah, all about blowing things up and falling apart. Okay, the team also continued last year's work on the transit system, preparing it for upcoming refactor and completing work to ensure the current version is suitable for server meshing and crash recovery. This is how you know that they had to change up server meshing quite a bit. I bet you, go back to Star Citizen monthly report, I'm just going to throw a month out there. Let's say June of 2021. And see if they were doing refactors of the transit system for server meshing quite a while ago. There was a pretty long time ago where they were talking about ATC and trains being switched over for server meshing. So I'm wondering if this is kind of showing that they had to go back and do that again. Okay, so this involved implementing a safe recovery system for players who experience a server crash while inside moving transit. Oh, that's nice. I didn't think about that. Engineering also continued refactoring the docking and landing systems, including a rewrite of the automatic dock and undock feature, thank God. Yeah, we're going to need this if we want a Legionnaire this year. Alright, for the former Arena Commander feature team, January's focus was on transitioning to the persistent universe and becoming familiar with the workflow and systems. While the team's focus is now the PU, they'll continue to maintain, improve, and provide regular content updates for Arena Commander. albeit with reduced velocity. This is why, like, don't freak out. Where was it that they said this? Somewhere in these feature updates, they said that the Arena Commander team was not going to focus as much on it. Oh, here we go. It's the first line. The team focused on closing out essential refactors and polish tasks before they transition to supporting the persistent universe in a more permanent capacity. Doesn't mean that they're dropping Arena Commander completely. It just means they're focusing more on the PU, because they, I guess, got the game modes in. But, like, I still expect there to be new maps and new stuff going to Arena Commander. So this team was they're working on systems. The team's focused now on the PU, but they'll maintain regular content updates for Arena Commander. That being said, the team finished work on 3 special events and formed a strike team to close out the Resource Network experimental mode. Yeah, they're still working on Arena Commander. Don't fret. January also saw 2 successful go-no-goes for Arena Commander, a grav race, and where players race grav-lev vehicles across 5 racetracks, and a major update to master modes, which includes a limited test of the new AI behaviors tailor-made for master modes. Atmospheric maps were also added across all master modes game modes. We've seen a little bit of these tracks, but keep an eye on Arena Commander. It's not going anywhere. It's not stopping development. It's just, I think they got their main work done in it. Now we get to see them bring in things like engineering and stuff. I really hope they bring in mining and salvage and industrial game loops to Arena Commander. That'd be a great way to just show your friends the game. After last month's successful tests, the team began implementing streaming bubbles across all Arena Commander locations for improved performance and easier map setup. Additionally, they continued to refactor several UI systems to building blocks, improving the overall UI. Fantastic. And also, Theaters of War, anybody? Finally, for core gameplay, the team worked on a wide range of features for the upcoming cargo update. This includes new cargo freight elevators, instanced hangars, personal hangar persistence, commodity trading changes, and associated commodity kiosk updates, cargo grid improvements, hover trolley support, hauling mission support, and more. This single paragraph would have crashed the whole community if we'd seen it like a couple years ago. Too bad it's not a couple years ago. This is a pretty major change to the game as well, though. One of the biggest I think the game's ever seen in terms of design. This is going to be the change that wraps up. You guys remember like 2.5 years ago with Alpha 3.15 when they were like, okay, now your planets and your space stations and your spaceships, or no, I think it was like the planets and the space stations will share an inventory, but once you leave them, you can never access your stuff again. And then they went a little bit further and they said, okay, now planets and space stations have their own inventories. Or not even planets, landing zones and space stations and outposts have their own inventories. So once you leave those locations, you lose all your stuff. Now we're going the final step and saying, okay, now it's just in your hangars. You can't even access all your stuff from the landing zone. Everything that you want to move has to be taken from your hangar and put into a spaceship or a vehicle to be moved somewhere else. This is the physicalization we've been waiting for a long time. Here's a little video look, a little hype piece on it, just to give you an idea. This is a big part of Star Citizen. I know for a lot of people this is going to ruin the experience, because this is hard. This isn't easy stuff. It's not how a game normally happens. And gosh, freaking dang it. Sorry, Mrs. Tomato. We've needed it. So here is the joy that is freight elevators and the work that's going into them, expected for 323. Let's see it.
No.
CitizenCon as a collective whole has lost it at this point. We were still cheering. They just muted the mics. Okay, so big news, big complications, big questions. We won't touch too much on it because we have a lot of times, and I'll have a video about that coming out this quarter. One of the things you might not have seen, though, related to this is actually really important because it shows players that, you know, a lot of players immediately see that and think, okay, this game is gonna, I don't want to do this. I don't want to move stuff around physically. You won't have to. I'm pretty sure I have it in this folder. What I'm pulling up for you guys is a UI. Found it! All right, this is a little bit of insight into what cargo hauling will look like in the future. You have hired workers, you have a time that you have to wait, you get in progress reports, you have amount of money you have to pay to people who are going to do this labor for you. So even if for whatever reason you hate cargo hauling but decide to get a big ship, and you don't want to deal with all of that time, you can hire other people or NPCs. Part of the reason Star Citizen is defined or designed with so many things that feel a little bit annoying is because they won't be able to convince certain people to do those jobs and get paid a certain amount if everybody wants to do them. So if you have gameplay options that aren't mandatory but are maybe annoying to players who don't like that gameplay, that gives people the excuse to hire other people and it keeps the economy going. That's at least the way I see it. I don't know if they've ever come out and say it like that, but seems like a good way to work. So this is one of the big changes. I guess if you wanted to, you could call this a placeholder if you think everything's a placeholder, but this is a major way that they want to do cargo with the physical transportation in this game. 323, baby, I hope. They called it a significant endeavor that involves working closely with teams across CIG like UI, design, art, animation, narrative, and core tech to deliver on the full vision, saying, so far, we are right in the thick of building out core functionality and establishing pipelines. With early prototyping, proving out functionality, and providing input for iteration, there's still much work to come, but progress has been solid to date. To be honest, early prototyping in January doesn't make me confident about this coming in 3.23, but they also do have a lot more devs working on this stuff now, so the timelines have shifted a little bit from what we saw last year. All right, in-game branding. Alongside the environment team, in-game branding continued integrating branding elements into the new distribution centers. The development of Pyro's Outpost continued too, with attention on finalizing signage to enhance visibility and communication. Love the stuff that we're seeing from these distribution centers. I hope that we get more looks at the inside because we've seen plenty of the outside in anticipation of this first update. It's the exterior. Or the interior stuff that I'm more interested in. The exterior looks great though. Give you a little look at it.
Yeah, some other.
These will probably be like the headline of 323, I think.
Cargo hauling, like I said, resource gathering and mining. Talking.
Wait, I just realized they showed the hover trolley here. Right here. I guess they show it a little bit later in this video, but the first... Yeah, that's right. We see it at the end of this video. I was thinking the first time we saw it was in the cargo freight elevator. Cool location. I'm hesitant on them. Like I said, these could be the headline feature of 323, but like they need to prove that these locations are going to be worth it. If they drop these locations in and we have basically the same experience we did in the UGS we already have, that's wildly disappointing. And I don't think that that's the company that we're dealing with anymore. They've gotten a lot better at expanding on missions, but I'm like, three different things. Where does this fit in? Is this something I'm going to have to unlock over time by doing other missions? And then I get to work my way up to getting in here, which would be awesome. 2, do I have to meet people here? Is there a mission giver being placed here or anything like that in any of the locations that make me actually want to go there before I take a mission and like do stuff without just going there for the mission? And 3, how many different types of missions will be there? They talk about engineering, mining, and combat, but that's not necessarily for 323. So these locations are great and they're looking really good, but the jury's still out for me on them. All right, live tools. The live tools team developed and implemented several new features to assist the player support teams. They're currently ensuring that the Network Operations Center becomes easier to use and meets the evolving needs of the different users. In addition, the team is further improving other internal development tools and providing the necessary help and maintenance. Other development tools, like a modding tool. No, I'm kidding. Don't even get started. Locations. EU Sandbox number 1 continued to develop the upcoming distribution centers, as we've seen, while Sandbox 2 worked on location markup for the new star map and high-tech. Oh, look at that. This is the first time. I want to say this is the first time in years they've mentioned anything around architectural styles. Specifically cargo elevators. So they have the utilitarian cargo elevator in there. Still working on the other ones though. High-tech and colonial cargo elevators are referring to they're trying to develop Star Citizen in different architectural styles that can mix together across the different systems. We know mostly utilitarian, but we also get plenty of high-tech from Microtech and Crusader. But you can see there's also utilitarian, as we've been focusing on. And colonialism are these new outposts we've been seeing in Pyro. We'll look at those in a second. So what they're saying is that they're going to take the utilitarian cargo elevators and apply them to both the colonialism style of architecture and the high-tech style of architecture, which isn't a huge deal, but to me it says that they're starting to actually expand and differentiate more based on the archetype of locations, which once again feels like it's pushing into more of a we're trying to build out the game kind of vibe. I'm gonna give you a look though at what these new colonialism outposts look like, so you get an idea of where we're coming from. Here are some in the Pyro system coming in the 4.0 update. Yay! Okay, so new outposts. They're looking quite bigger than what we have right now in Stanton, obviously. But once again, new locations, what are they going to put in them? Progress was also made towards Pyro's initial release. This involved finalizing the placement of outposts and integrating content such as the new Defend mission. Hopefully there's more missions than just that one. Alongside this, the landing zone team continued to work on the cargo feature, including freight and ship elevators for hangars. So a lot of work going into, obviously, the features for 323, including the freight elevators. I'm betting the freight elevators will be like a 323.1 or 2 kind of thing. Locations from the Montreal team. Not just locations, Montreal locations. The team began the year closing out mandates, starting new ones, and planning for 2024. Doing work. For example, they closed out the final bug fixing for additional derelict settlements and kicked off the white box for building interiors. They also continued their work on the distribution center's mandate. Y'all want to hear about building interiors? These are like the sleeping giant. Building interiors are super hype in my opinion. Bigger deal, far bigger deal than the distribution centers. But I don't know really how far they're going to go with them. Here's kind of the idea behind them though. I don't want to show you this hole in thing. Here's their pitch from your boy Ian Leyland.
So building interiors is something we've always wanted to do, you know, because of, you know, we've had cities in the game for a while. We have many cities, we have many buildings. Therefore, we could have many interiors. It's a perfect opportunity to put in a lot of play space. Now, with the players flying around these buildings, they've been largely urban landscapes, fairly uninteractable. You know, we've done a few landing pads to get the players in and out there, but really the real good stuff was on the inside. So up until now, we've been on the outside wondering about the inside, and today we're going to talk about the inside.
Wondering about outside. The outside. No, it's like perfect line for it, man. So the idea behind building interiors is that you would have all these different floors in these buildings that we've got. Not every building, but there are plenty, so maybe some of them.
Right off the bat on the top, it's the rooftop spaces. So these would be the primary access points for the player. Then just below that, the maintenance spaces, these could be industrial or technical. Also, we can have residential. So residential could be entire building blocks, so it could be a proportion. Then after that, we've got commercial. So these could be shopping, it could be offices, it could be social. And then at the bottom, obviously, we've got lobbies. Now, these also could be access points for the player. For example, if you're inside Area 18, the player can get access to it there. And then lastly, we've got the underground. Now, these could be interesting as a connector space between buildings. So maybe you've gone in through one building, you go down, and it could bring you through to another part of a building.
Or I'm really hoping they can connect to caves or even those distribution centers we've talked about. So first you have the rooftops, landing pads.
That drives the architecture of the building. With landing pads, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the top of the building. It could be, you know, halfway down or lower. So imagine, you know, you're in the lower parts of the city, and then we'd open up these additional play spaces. And as you can see here, it's not just the landing pad, it's the gameplay space that goes along with it too.
And then we've got, this is actually, I think this is the biggest kicker for me. They're talking about small, like, look at this. This is essentially a hangar bay, right? In the middle of a city. So imagine this is in like Area 7 instead of Area 18. It's not as big as Area 18. It's not the main landing zone, but you still have hangar bays. You can still get out. You can still take tunnels and trains to other buildings in the area. It almost creates a smaller landing zone or a small city on the planet. Now, there aren't many planets that have multiple cities, but for those that do, this might be a thing. This could also be a thing in the regular landing zone, but overall, it's very much spreading out and modularizing the feel of a city compared to what we have now, which is a very central spaceport and single city landing zone kind of deal. It's cityizing the landing zones.
Network hub that services a few different buildings. So what we're looking at here is maybe like a transit hub where the player could land, get on some transit, and then that would lead to some buildings.
Now,
okay, so
This is also a art preview. So these things that we're seeing are not explicitly confirmed. These are, this is very much during the conceptual phase where they're figuring out what the idea behind these are. Now that they're getting in the white box, we'll hear more about the design of the gameplay behind it, but this is an early conceptual look we're taking right now.
It could deal with the data or the communications. And what we're looking at here is potential some, gameplay puzzles where the player has to work their way inside the main operation booth. So moving on to residential.
Residential is pretty cool.
In the potential player housing. So with that, we want to be able to create a variety of interior layouts. And also we want to explore a variety of architectural styles. So when we're looking at potential housing layouts, we wanted something fairly modular in a way in which we could create a variety of combinations. So whether it's living spaces or habitation spaces or social spaces. And also here we're looking at, we want the place to eventually be able to populate the player-owned habitation. So you see here like a first indication of how, the sort of dressing styles that you'd be able to do. Outside of something that's fairly utilitarian, we also want to do something that could be fairly high-end. So here we're just exploring some ideas about what a space could feel like on a different architectural
Oblivion
style.
vibes.
And more generous windows, interior spaces dedicated to more than just habitation. And these would be focused on other landing zones. So imagine you come across these in Area 18, or it could be when we come to Terra. And also, like I said, it could be informing future player-owned habitation architectural sets. Now, outside of the living quarters, there's also the social spaces.
So we keep going. Social spaces, we got commercial spaces.
More gameplay focused outside of player habitation. So when we're talking about these could be office blocks. These could be corporate-owned. Inside here, there could be corporate wings. There could be manufacturing. There could be office spaces. And what we try to think about with these, it's more than just a flat room. There should be advanced reversal. It should be multi-tiered. So outside of the commercial offices, we've also got like restaurants and bars. So what we're looking at here is a pretty
Deus Ex.
cool like skyline bar in Lowville. That could be fun. But also in restaurants, Chris always described the idea of really high-end restaurants in the game where you can get access to food choices that isn't available anywhere else. So right at the foot of the building, we're going to start talking about the lobby. So as I said before, these are going to be access points to the player, but also we can do more than just a standard foyer that we're seeing in the game right now. So this sort of space we're seeing here is, imagine there's an underground transit network, and that transit station feeds a network of building lobbies. So these could be social spaces, these could be really good combat spaces. They could have access to mini restaurants or bars or facilities. And we're just showing that in a variety of art styles. So one's a fairly low end, one could be fairly high end, but the infrastructure is the same. So
Okay,
as we're exploring...
Sorry guys, freaking Bishop distracted me in chat. All right, last part that they're going to do is this underground, which I think has a lot of potential for out-of-city gameplay. Also, this seems like how they're going to do smuggling. You won't be able to bring guns and stuff into cities based on the city's security, but if you can find alternate routes in, that could be smuggling, criminal gameplay, and different types of missions we could get into.
One of the coolest spaces. So rather than just focusing on the positive axis of the building, we're going to look at the underground. Now, what this does, it means we can access a whole area of play space that doesn't need to be contained inside the building. So within the lobby, we want the player to start to traverse down into these spaces, and these could be underground transit networks. They could be abandoned underground transit networks. This then could drive potential racing opportunities. So when we was doing this, we thought, it'd be really cool. Like, what would it look like if there's an underground street race going on there? Also, there could be traverse.
It's muted. This is like really peak Star Citizen content, and listening to what he says is super important because I think this is some of the context that gets missed when Star Citizen delivers news, and that news comes from a specific dev who is talking about it from a specific angle. People will hear him saying these things and think, like, listen to specifically to what the words he uses.
Opportunities. So when we was doing this, we thought, oh, it'd be really cool. Like, what would it look like if there's an underground street race going on there?
Using things like, it would be really cool. What would it look like? Maybe you can. People see as them basically getting out from committing. But this guy's very art focused. So all the things he's saying are from the relation of, this is the location we're going to making, and this is what we imagine they're doing in it. Then he passes it to the actual gameplay teams, the feature teams, and they're the ones who will look at the art that they've made and said, this is how we can apply this. Go back to the art team and ask for a little bit more stuff. But like, that sort of communication leads to, I think, expectations. That's them setting expectations and maybe not clarifying as much as needed. We might not see this exact thing, you know, we might not even see a racetrack underground. We might just see an area that allows vehicles to be spawned. But from his art perspective, that's the kind of stuff that he's sharing these locations would be used for. Craziest thing in my opinion when it comes to building interiors is if they can get dynamic server meshing working. Servers can be expensive, but let's say they can have, I don't know, 20 servers working a single system. What if that system has one city and that city has 15 to 10 separate enterable buildings? What if 2 buildings or 3 buildings could be a server and you could just have so much more gameplay in these spaces because they're split out from the rest of the system? That would be cool, but I don't know how much they're going to scale up server meshing. That seems like a lot.
Also, there could be traversal opportunities. Like I said before, if the player wanted to go into one building, down, and then through, and then up into another building, what would that traversal network be like? Especially if we're thinking about, if it's an older part of the underground of a city, maybe it's less used, you know, people have built up. That would instantly inspire a whole bunch of traversal and investigation missions there. Or maybe there's an old aqueduct or an old infrastructure underground. You know, this could be perfect for underground street racing or other racing opportunities. So in a nutshell, what we looked at is a blue sky investigation into what building interiors could be like for the game. These are essentially...
Wait, did he just say that they're doing all of their investigations on Blue Sky? Funny. Okay, here's the last little conclusion on this, where they talk about why this is happening.
So just in case we was thinking it's all just blue sky concept, actually we're going to start full production on these spaces right at the end of this quarter.
So what did we learn this
So
week?
yeah, building interiors are pretty freaking big, and the fact that they're starting to be worked on in White Box, I believe, yeah, by the Montreal team, you know, that means something. Montreal does some work, and building interiors are obviously a big deal. Now, we only have one look at the production going into those. As he said, they were supposed to start working full production on those last year. They did get some work in on them, but I don't believe it really went anywhere. Because, oh god, you guys passed this stupid Bonita Tomat. We're just doing it right now? You're putting the, what? Y'all don't want a full stream with the Bonita? Alright, fine. I'm trying to find building interiors for y'all before this gets a little distracting. I'm not seeing it though. I could have sworn I had this footage. Okay, well, I know what video it's in. We only got one update on building interiors, and it actually came in one of our only 2 sprint reports last year. Where is that? Mission to module. Moreville, Lorville. Get Furious. Oh, where is the sprint report from? Ah.
Oh, ain't she pretty?
Oh, here it is. Pretty tomat.
Universe with a test here.
All right, and here is our building interiors update.
Just
Also in white box is the pre-production blockouts for a variety of building interior modules that will fit inside the towering skyscrapers of New Babbage on Microtech, being developed and tested in situ simultaneously to work out and discover anything developers might not have considered or recognized as necessary in the original mandate. The idea here is that once the player lands, they would enter this particular interior from the very top, encountering a lobby and expected elevators. Then, after a brief trip down, emerge into a number of different interior modules such as block of player apartments seen in the example here.
So that's the work on building interiors so far. Yeah, I know, I'm pretty. Deal with it. This was back in March, so we don't really know what's been going on since then, but that's a big old piece of work that Montreal is now building up. All right, let's continue. Mission design. Oh, that's a new one. Mission design continue. They just throw it in here. They don't introduce the team. Mission design continued to fix Siege of Orison for the live release, tackling many long-standing issues using new evidence. Work also continued on Blockade Runner, including finishing iteration cycles and fixing bugs. Blockade Runner sounds like it's going to be interesting. Narrative team. The narrative team back from the holiday. They came back from the holiday break to multiple large-scale initiatives. Okay, that will add more story and character content into the game. We need that so bad. The narrative team could really do a lot to help this game feel more alive. The team, they also met with various design teams to generate text for some of the systemic missions being introduced in upcoming patches. Those who missed it, we went over all of the missions that are coming up. The barge heist mission is one that they haven't shown us yet. Escorting AI ships around the star system also is a mission they were working on, hasn't been in yet. Cargo missions, they aren't in yet. Bounty hunting missions are supposed to get a redo, but don't know what's going on with that. Mission-wise, there's actually quite a bit going on they don't talk too much about. The team then looked back to the existing lore and science of other planets and moons to make adjustments based on gameplay needs. Okay, so this is the lore being adjusted to fit gameplay as it is, and could mean small retcons here and there. On the narrative design front, the team continued examining existing behaviors and looking for ways to fix bugs and pops, while building a more comprehensive system based on what was learned during Squadron 42's development. That's a good call. It is nice that the MMO is now going to have the backing of the people who did all of the Squadron stuff. It's a little more narrative focused. The first initiative is building a general civilian line set to populate larger spaces. The team is also looking at updating the tourist behavior to accommodate large-scale events like Invictus and IAE. So it sounds like narrative is doing like the setup work for the groundwork that AI did. So AI team is getting the NPCs to actually do stuff together. Narrative team is putting the NPCs in the actual cities where they're supposed to be. It'd be nice to get a narrative ISC coming up soon. I bet you that'd give us some good information. Another volley of lore posts hit the website in January. A Whitley's Guide on Misk's unique Reliant lineup, a portfolio on Pyrotechnic Amalgamated. I don't think I've read that. And finally, a Galactopedia article exploring humanity's perilous connection with AI development. This is if you want to know why there aren't AI systems in this game in a large part, why AI blades are the only real AI we're seeing in this game, this Galactopedia article would help. There is a lore reason for why we aren't super into robots and stuff. All right, in January, further progress was made on the temporal render mode for atmosphere and clouds. So that is likely part of the update that missed 322. Among other things, ghosting around cloud fringes was reduced. Also, a code interface was implemented to allow gas clouds to hook into the temporal reconstruction process, as R&D would like to explore the possibility of sharing this render pass. This will allow gas clouds to benefit from associated performance improvements as well. Furthermore, support in capturing and extracting auxiliary call stacks for memory corruptions, specifically double deletes and write after free events, mentioned in last month's report was implemented on both the engine and tool sides, with its integration into Sentry currently being investigated by Turbulent. Whatever in the absolute that means. Allow me to show you clouds. Here's the work that they were just talking about working on with clouds. This is something that was expected in 3.22, but did not make it. So I think this was the only feature actually that they said for 3.22 that didn't make it in. You don't have to advertise Star Citizen to me. It's my job. All right, here we go. So here's some of the cloud improvements they're working on right now.
And
still don't know when these will
this
come,
video,
but they are in the
we're
works.
showing all the features combined together. In addition, we made many improvements to cloud shaping to allow for more variation and details. The shape noise blending, a vertical variation, has been improved a lot. Also, we made improvements to shorten long distance read, and the tiling is less visible. And best of all,
yeah, it looks really good.
we're going to
Nope, don't say it. All right, I'll let him say it.
include all these new features and improvements in the next 3.22 release.
Oh no!
Okay. Thank you.
See, don't say dates. Even at this CitizenCon, we're like, but don't say dates. On the UI side, in January, a building blocks framework was worked on for the freight elevator UI. This was accompanied by the ongoing creation of art mockups to ensure a visually cohesive experience. A user experience pass is also underway for the freight elevator and resource network mandates. Additionally, wireframes were crafted for the commodity kiosk UX, while attention was given to enhancing the overall user experience within the item shop. So the UIs that they are going to be using for this stuff are the ones we actually haven't seen any, but they kind of give us the idea here with or is it they talk about a kiosk here that they used to call? Maybe it's in the next one. Nah, we don't need it. What I'm more interested in knowing, actually, is whether or not the cargo boxes will start getting UIs to replace our inventory UIs. All right, VFX team. Last month, the VFX team focused on fixing log spam for when there's too much, there are too many loggers upstream, and they're cutting down too many trees, and they clog up the river. Ugh. No. Really, it's to fix log spam that has built up over time. This involves solving minor data errors that don't break the game but can be problematic to devs working in the editor if too many accumulate. For example, a missing texture referenced by a particle effect. A little bit of tech debt, huh? It's those beavers, man. Last month, a new launcher team was created to enhance the user experience of the RSI launcher. It's the web platform team. Their first major focus is the development of Launcher 2.0, which will bring a fresh UI design and up-to-date technology to support the Star Citizen community. We've seen this in the leaks, and I think it's interesting. In the top corner of the launcher, it says Games, not Star Citizen. The Evocati community was given the first version of the new launcher to assess the sign-in, download, verify, launch, and game library location features. Testing will continue up to its release to the wider community. Alongside this, the content experience team worked on a simple image component to provide an efficient solution for image management. With features like lazy loading, customizable formatting, and centralized control, it streamlines performance, scalability, and flexibility. Its easy integration and prevention of content shifting make it an essential tool for maintaining a unified image handling approach. Not a bad report. Plenty of good news in here. Because we are so blessed with information right now, it's news, a lot of news we know about. But there are a few cool tidbits, I would say. The architectural styles they're working on in locations is good. Building interiors entering white box is good. The narrative team getting so much more involved in the actual game loops. That's also pretty nice to hear. And I like the economy team. I'm always going to be a fan of hearing from the economy team. This stuff is all good. It's just piling more onto this idea that they are getting away from the sort of tech demo alpha phase of development and are moving towards building the actual game on top of the systems they've been working on. A lot of this stuff still hasn't launched, so over the next few months we'll be looking into these systems and seeing if they actually make it into the game. Stuff like the star map, item retrievals, the cargo system, and the HUD and Mobiglass. These are all things that have been under work in like the building block systems and stuff for 2-3 years. So seeing these things replaced finally by a more finalized version is saying some good things about the game. Another key reason, well, not necessarily a reason, they may have done this on purpose because they don't feel it's necessary, but another thing that makes me feel like they're focusing more on the gameplay side of these monthly reports than the overall development side is that they didn't even include an engine section, which, while I usually can't tell you what it means, is a pretty crucial read because it tells us a lot about stuff like Vulkan and their data storage methods and all that kind of stuff. They might not have had an update for it this month and just kept it out, but there are things in R&D that I would have expected to hear about in engine. There's also some stuff I think in somewhere else they said they were working on server meshing. Overall though, very gameplay focused. Star Citizen is going to become more popular. It's going to become more of a, I won't say mainstream, but definitely more friendly to people who have been waiting. A lot of people who have been waiting, I think, will be returning this year. As long as they can get stability to improve a little bit too. On the gameplay side of things, ships, factions, reputation, cargo, a lot of the stuff I used to worry about, now I know is well into development and probably coming along sometime relatively soon.